Please help me welcome our own. We seem to be having some technical difficulties.
Go!
Dennis Dawson, District 57's Governor.
I once gave a speech that big, and then the next thing you know, I realized it was just this tiny little speech. How did this happen? Well, I was scheduled to give a speech 3 weeks in advance, like I always am. 3 weeks. Piece of cake, right? I'm a professional writer. I can just sit down, knock out one page. I mean, that's all it is, 1 page, 1-inch margins. I can write it any old time. I didn't get right to work. I was a very important person. I have a lot to do. I've got a job. And when I'm not doing my job, maybe I do some things that aren't quite so important as my job. I'm a big disciple of SpongeBob. Sometimes I do things that aren't important at all. But the point is, in 3 weeks, no problem at all. Well, I walk into my office the next week. What happens? I knock this thing on the floor. I bend down to pick it up. Oh, the speech. It's 2 weeks away. Well, 2 weeks. No problem. I don't have to get busy on that right away. So I kind of stuck it behind my computer monitor and let it sit and mature like a fine wine. You see, I have ideas. Always have ideas. And I can just grab one of those ideas from the air and turn it into a speech instantly. A man who's got ideas, why, the world is his oyster. So I'll just grab one of them ideas and I'll turn it into a speech. I'll practice a couple of times, walk right in. Well, a week later, that speech had gotten pretty big. It knocked my monitor askew. I realized, okay, it's probably time to actually sit down and write the speech. And I was going to sit down and write that speech immediately after work. Or maybe after dinner. So I stuck it under my desk and kind of kicked it real deep and dark. Because I would get to it. It's no problem. Still got a week. We all know we can knock out a speech in a week unless the phone rings. And it did. And who was on the phone? A customer. Well, the customer's always right?
Right.
Yeah, so I immediately set to work on that customer issue. I burned the midnight oil. I made sure that I met every one of his customer needs. I gave excellent customer service. I did a great job. Then it was time to take that speech home and work on it for the weekend. Unfortunately, it was really big and heavy at this point. And I'd just done a great week's work. There's no reason that I should go to all the trouble of lugging that sucker home. So I guess what I'll do is just come in on Monday and I'll work on the speech, practice it, and we'll be all set. Well, I come in Monday. And that speech had grown all the way up to my chin, and it was as wide, well, almost as wide as I was. I had to kind of sidle around that speech to get to my computer and have a seat. And I immediately set to work. Of course, I checked my email immediately, but there's that speech leaning over my back, breathing on me, trying to intimidate me, succeeding at that. Well, I open up my email, and it's the email, isn't it? The message from the Toastmaster. Hi, I'm the Toastmaster of the week. Would you please send me the title of your speech, the time, and the lesson? I panicked. I didn't have a speech. I didn't have anything. What was I thinking? I couldn't knock out a speech in one day. I had all those great ideas. What happened to my ideas? They washed down the drain while I was in the shower. They flew out the windows when I was commuting. I had nothing. Nothing. I knew that it was time to man up. It was time for me to do the right thing. Dear Mr. Toastmaster, due to an important customer issue last week, I was unable to write my speech. Please postpone it and schedule me for a future date. Signed, District Governor Dennis Dawson. district governor. And then I could relax. I felt so good. Oh, damn. That speech was still there, breathing down my neck. But now, it kind of stunk. And I realized it wasn't just me I was letting down by giving that speech. I'm letting down my entire club. And they're going to look at me with those big puppy dog eyes. Why, District Governor Dennis Dawson, District Governor, why did you fail to write your speech? Now we have to do table topics for half an hour. Well, that was it. I set to work on that speech. Every word was like pulling teeth, but I got it done. I took my last sliver of backbone, I fashioned it into a lever, and I pushed that speech down the stairs into the Grand Tetons conference room, and I delivered the biggest speech of my life. And when I was finished with that gigantic, wonderful speech, I waited for the accolades. And I got polite applause and a really helpful evaluation. Because that speech that I thought was so grand was just a tiny little speech. Like any other speech that you would see in a Toastmasters club anywhere in the world thousands of times a day. I just filled it up with all of my anxiety and my worry and angst and turned it into something much bigger than it actually was. So I learned my lesson. Now, when I'm assigned a speech, I immediately set to work writing, get that thing written as quickly as I possibly can so that I can rehearse, so that I can do it 1, 2, 5, 10 times and be sure it's nice and smooth. And then when I go in to give my speech to my club, they are always going to be impressed. Every speech can be great, and every speech can be small if you prepare on time.